Okay, sorry. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning to you all. Okay, so for today, we will learn about states of matter. Our work will be states of matter. Our work will be investigating diffusion and Brownian motion. So, if you have your textbook with you, please open to page 72 and 72, 75. Okay, so let's see the investigating of diffusion. Okay, so using diffusion, to make a tea in the teapot, you always make a tea, right? So you pour boiling water onto the tea leaves. Particle from the tea leaf diffuse into the hot water. You can make the tea stronger and darker by leaving the tea leaves in the pot for a longer time. You can make the tea stronger by using more tea leaves. You can stir the tea leaves to make your tea stronger more quickly. To make a drink using fruit syrup, you add water to a concentrated syrup. When you add water from a tap, the water particles and fruit syrup particles get mixed up. If you add the water slowly and very gently, you have to wait for the syrup to diffuse through the water. So basically, your this textbook teach you on how to become a chef, I think. Okay, right? So so usually you know how to make tea, right? So when you make tea, you will pour the boiling water in sorry, onto the tea leaves. So you can see from colorless boiling water, it turns to yellow. And if you leave the tea leaves in the teapot, okay, for a longer time, or for a long time, you can see the color from yellow, it become a little bit brownish and dark brown, right? So this means by diffusion. Okay, the tea leaf color diffuses into boiling water, colorless boiling water. That's why from colorless to what color? Yellowish brownish color. Okay, so let's see. Brownian motion. So particle theory helps us to explain how diffusion happens. Gases and liquids are made up of tiny particles that move about all the time, bumping into each other and changing direction. Eventually, the random movement of the particle causes them to spread out evenly. Particle theory can also help us to explain why bigger things such as pollen grains jiggle about. Okay, so you can see this Brownian motion, they explain the diffusion through Brownian motion. What means by Brownian motion? This is water particle, and this water particle keep, is it not move in the orderly manner. It just move randomly. Random movement means that it can move to the right, it can move to the left, it can move up, down, and in any direction. All right, they're not moving in orderly manner. This means by random movement. It can move randomly and collide. All right, so for example, this one want to move upward, so this one want to move downward, so it will collide. So this is what we call by random movement. Okay, so random movement. Okay, random movement of the particle, and this cause them to spread. Okay, to spread evenly. Okay, understand? All right, so let's see. Moving pollen grains. Flowers produce pollen grains to help them to reproduce. Pollen grains are very small, but you can easily see them with a microscope. They are much bigger than the tiny particles that are involved in diffusion. Pollen grains cannot move by themselves. They are carried around by air currents or insects. If you put some pollen grains onto a drop of water on a microscope slide, they float. When you look through the microscope, you will see that the pollen grains are moving about. They jiggle about in random directions. You will see the same effect if you sprinkle some dust on the water. But we know that pollen grains and dust cannot swim or move by themselves. What makes the pollen grain and dust move? We can explain the random movement of the pollen grains and the dust using the particle theory. The drop of water is made up of millions and millions of tiny particles of water. These are much too small to see. The water particles are always moving. When they bump into the much bigger pollen grains or dust grain, they make them move. So you can see the pollen grains, okay, when you see through the microscope, you can see they move like they're moving around. Okay, but in the random movement. What means by random movement? Not moving around in orderly manner. Okay, it can move in any direction. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is pollen grain. Okay, you can see invisible water particles strike the pollen grain. So the pollen grain knock this way. So the more invisible particles strikes the pollen grain not this way. So it is the movement is caused by the water particles. A pollen grain are being hit by tiny water particles that are too small to see, making it jiggle about in random way. So this is just random way. Random way means it moves in any direction. Okay, so that's all for now for this part 1. Okay, thank you for listening, guys.